Dave. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Kate, thank you for the introduction. Members of the board and Senate, we've got a great number of faculty and staff colleagues, students, and very fine representation of the community in the broadest sense, the community that values and has built this university over the generations. And it's fantastic to be here together for this 2010-11 UPEI update. So we come together as a community interested in the University of Prince Edward Island and in UPEI's successes and contributions. Many of you may have come to this 2010-11 update expecting, or perhaps even in the hope, that you'd see some fireworks similar to what you may have seen in the media earlier this week. Let me say that you will and won't be disappointed. You won't be disappointed because today we share a proud, and I'll say a fiercely proud, account of UPEI, what we're achieving and what we have achieved, and a recognition of the great people who comprise and support this university, including, I may say, that after we have the update presentation, we'll be proceeding to an awards recognition for the service of longtime employees, some of them, one of them, who's been with us as long as 40 years. So we share a pride in the fine people who've built this university over the generations, in what we're achieving together. And we share a pride with the province and people of Prince Edward Island, for whom and on whose behalf we are constituted as the province's provincial university. So off the top, I can assure you that the fire is burning, and it's a fire of pride in our university, in our achievements, and in our mandate. But what we're really here about today is the work. So that's the fire and the work. It's to get a sense of what we've done over this past year, where we're positioned for the year going forward, and the years going forward. And as Kate said in her introduction, it's timely as we pass into the years 2010, 2011, to recognize that we now, those of us who can remember the fanfare of the millennium and the debate over whether it was in 2000 or in 1999 that it began, and all about Y2K and so on, that to recognize that we're now a full decade and more into this century, and to appreciate what we've achieved during that time, and how it positions us, how it positions this university, and how it positions this province looking forward. Just another word about the fireworks, or the fire. I want to say that it's not just me, or it's not me in my role as UPEI president, who has a sense of pride in what we're achieving as a university, who we are, and notably our mandate as the provincial university for this province. The Board of Governors is meeting tonight. The Senate will meet tomorrow. The Alumni Association met last night and has spoken out. The Student Union spoke out earlier this week. Various individual and groups of employees have spoken out, as have many friends and private individuals and people collectively in the province, and we want to recognize that and appreciate it and feel that it's reflected in the attendance and the sense of ownership that we see here in this hall today and in what each of you individually brings in terms of your belief in this place, your support for it, and your contributions to what we've achieved. So let me then turn to the question of where we are. Each of you will have received a copy of this beautiful document. I hope everyone has one. If you don't, put up your hand and someone will pass you one. Roger, how do you miss out on that? You generally get a hold of what's going around. This document has been produced by our team in Integrated Communications. They've done this for each of our updates over a number of years. Very talented group, and I can assure you that they've worked hard to make this, to put it together, to understand the university and how we represent ourselves between, let me say, four covers. And I know you'll appreciate it as we work our way through. So if I may ask you to open it up to its fullest part, we're going to proceed through the presentation in four parts. Might turn out to be five, but the first part is to look at the whole question of what we've been achieving with our students and our enrollments. And on this first slide, we'll see that UPEI has this year, as of the fall of 2010, 4,600 students. This is our largest enrollment ever, representing a 40% increase in our enrollments since 1999. This slide helps to give us an appreciation of what it means to have had that enrollment success over 10 years. It's interesting on this slide, which presents the comparison with the overall enrollment of students in the 17 universities that we have in Atlantic Canada, to see that UPEI in 2002 had the same enrollment, or had the same increase relative to our 2000 base as the other universities across the region, that there was a bump at UPEI and in the region that peaked in 2004. That was really the year when what those of us who can remember was known as the double cohort in Ontario contributed to an increase in enrollments here and elsewhere in the country. It's interesting that UPEI that year appears to have profited or reflected to an even greater extent that double cohort. I doubt if that's exactly the case. We didn't really make it a priority, or we really weren't at that time, or I might say reliant on or strategically directed in any intensive way at the Ontario population. But the effect of that double cohort produced other effects here locally and generally across the country. As we look at what took place post-2004, I think that's where we get an appreciation of what UPEI has achieved in terms of our recognition and reputation and our recruitment efforts here at home, across Canada, and internationally. As you look at the Atlantic pattern, you'll see that the Atlantic universities overall have still not fully recovered from the dip that took place in 2004, or post-2004, whereas UPEI has seen its enrollments continue to grow. In fact, in the region, it was really this fall, for the first time, that there was an appreciable gain post-2004. This is we see here the situation with our success in recruiting international students, indication of the work that's been done to build UPEI's reputation and its visibility internationally. This year we have students from 59 countries. The lower bar here shows the pattern nationally in Canada through to 2008, which is the most recent year for which we have national data. But it's interesting in this slide, as we'll see in others, that UPEI has been performing above regional and national trends. This is the pattern for growth in our graduate programs and in the enrollment of graduate students going back to the early 90s, when we had graduate programs for the first time in the veterinary college, and then in 1998 when the University Act was opened up and amended through a thoughtful process to introduce graduate programs on the main campus, beginning with our Masters of Education program, others that have been brought forward again through a thoughtful and studious process through Senate, through MPHEC, and ultimately in the way that any institution has to be strategic and to be resourceful and to take care in how we're growing in areas where we have some strategic priorities, and that's really what you can see here, and we'll see later on in the course of the presentation. This is interesting to recognize that today UPEI has 71% of its students who come from Prince Edward Island, 18% from elsewhere in Canada, and just under 12% who come with international visas from up to, well, what I've stated was 59 countries around the world. And I would say that we can take pride in that mix of the serving the provincial, local population, bringing in students from across the country, and bringing students to PEI from around the world. So at 71, 20, and 10, that's a good overall balance. We can likely expect to see the continued opportunity for students to come from around the world. There's a lot of work being done nationally in Canada to put Canadian universities more actively on the map in what has historically been a very competitive environment. Now we get to look at the question of both quality and support, the quality of our students and support for them. We introduced in 2001 what we call our Inspiring Excellence Awards, which are an automatic award to students who are coming in first year with an average of 85% or better. 40% of our students this year hold the Inspiring Excellence Award. And the fact that 72% of our students receive an entrance scholarship says something about our competitive position in terms of attracting and confirming students to come to UPEI. But in an important way, it says a lot about the success that we've had and the support that we've had to put in place scholarships for our students. There are a lot of private donors who are behind this 72% of students receiving entrance scholarships and awards and bursaries. The 85% success rate of UPEI students who are receiving NSERC postgraduate scholarship awards says a lot about our students when they leave UPEI and their competitive position in what is obviously a very competitive process to put in their applications to be judged against students from across Canada for the NSERC postgraduate scholarships. Last year, well, really as of this fall, but based on last year's performance, we have our highest ever number of student athletes who were recognized as academic All-Canadians. This is an interesting piece of information here. Since 2002, we've had 28 new programs generated without adding a single academic department, I might say. In the university, these programs have all been approved by the Maritime Province's Higher Education Commission. And I think it's probably safe to say that UPEI has been the greatest source, or one of the universities that has produced the most work for MPHGC and bringing forward new programs since 2002. And we also have, as of this year, upwards of 30 transfer and articulation agreements with Holland College and with other institutions. And I leave this number up here just to remind ourselves about this. You know, sometimes when people talk about innovation or opening up new pathways for educational or post-secondary opportunities, the implication may be taken that somehow UPEI is not taking the initiative or opening up new pathways or looking for new things to do. And when you look at these numbers and see what in fact has taken place here, really essentially with our existing academic infrastructure, I think this is something in which we can all take pride, and we can also see that there's a linkage here between creating these new programs, including graduate programs, and those enrollment numbers that we've seen earlier. And this is an interesting piece of information. I think if we had stopped each of us on the way in here today and said, how many co-op placements do you suppose there'd be at UPEI, we wouldn't realize the extent of that activity. Of course, then the amount of work that's involved in finding those placements, in maintaining the partnerships, in mentoring the students who are out in those placements, and ultimately in paying them. It's quite remarkable to see this figure, $7.8 million in salaries to those students over the last decade who've been in co-op work terms. This too is an interesting, remarkable, and certainly a statistic in which we can take pride, that since the year 2000, we've had a 440% increase in the number of adult learners who are taking programs through our Centre for Lifelong Learning, whether that be a program known as Profit Learn that's offered in communities around Prince Edward Island, in our Seniors College, has the better part of 500 students enrolled this year. This screen opens up a whole subject that is very, very interesting and important, and that is, while we look at numbers of students, or we look at student achievement and awards and recognition, it's so essential to remember that it all starts with dedicated, talented, committed teachers who have been really the part of the success story, the essential to the success story of this university going back to its earliest foundation. And this year, we have Jane McGrath from English, who was a winner of a regional teaching award. We had last year Etienne Cote, seen here with the dog. He's a dog cardiologist, received one of the 3 awards in the Atlantic Association of Universities. There are only 3 given out in the region. And then the other 4 colleagues who appear here, Brent McLean, Philip Smith, Shannon Murray, and Brian Wagner, have received the top teaching award in Canada, the 3M awards, and there wouldn't be very many universities, we used to say there weren't any, that had as many 3M awards per capita as we have at UPEI, and we're proud of that and look forward to more. Another really critical aspect of our teaching enterprise and support for students is the work of the Webster Centre for Teaching and Learning, which was established in 2002, I'll say. And it's really amazing when you start seeing what these what's behind these numbers. In the late 1990s, I think we had one student who was recognized as taking advantage of support for students with learning disabilities. But when the service was set up, built up, the technologies put in place, the word of mouth, this year we'd have 300 of our students. We were talking about more than 5%, or on the order of 5% of our students who are taking advantage of support for students with learning disabilities. We've had students come here this year from Europe, a student who came from Alberta through what is probably the top private school for students with learning disabilities in the United States, where they pay about $70,000 tuition. So maybe we sort of should be thinking about that, but didn't bring you here today to announce that. That's a student who came here from Calgary. I was in Calgary last week at the Friends of UPEI dinner there, and there were two parents who came there whose daughter is here with us this year. She's made her way through school with a learning disability, and it's her first time she's really been independent and away from home, but she came to UPEI because of the service that we're offering here. They couldn't be happier about how that's all going, and it's a way of reminding ourselves that as we see our demographics change, as we make our way forward in a society where we recognize that every energy and every contribution is going to be needed, to recognize that the university is really a key place for bringing forward, enabling, encouraging, instructing, and really mentoring all of the talents of all of our students, and we're really happy with and proud of how we're doing on that front. Let me turn now to what is really the second panel in your brochure, or I'm not saying that you have to fold it all the way out. What we see here is really quite a remarkable slide, although it may not appear to have a dramatic upward slope. That's because it runs from 0 to 600%. So sometimes we talk about 0 to 60. Well, this is 0 to almost 600 in terms of the percentage increase in external research grants and contracts that have been, and this is not bringing in money, this is work that's actually being done in the year, and we have that data, we have those data through to April of 2010, so that's what 2010 represents here. UPEI in this period will have had an increase of upwards of 500%, whereas the national average for all Canadian universities would be somewhere in the low 100%. Here we see those same patterns reflected. Publication came out 3-4 weeks ago, looks at research income, research intensity, other factors for the 50 top universities in the country. And it also looked this year at the decade from 1999 to 2009. And in research income, UPEI had an increase of 432% through to 2009. And the national average for all Canadian universities during that period was 179%. So you could say we're 2.5 times above the national average during that period. Similarly, and I might say even more impressively, when the Research InfoSource group measured research intensity, which looks at publications, the impacts in the community, the outputs from research, UPEI's went up by 324%, which was the top, recognized to be the top in that group of undergraduate universities. But in fact, in both of these categories, This is the top for all the universities in the country. The increase during that period, again, about 2.5 times what took place on average in Canada. I'm really happy to show you this slide. I actually didn't see it until Tuesday of this week. I attended a forum that was organized in Halifax by Industry Canada, where they brought together all their own senior people and invited in a few people from outside to look at the whole question of research and the benefits and the strategic issues around research and innovation and productivity in Atlantic Canada. And I'm proud to say that the reason I was invited there, well, maybe there were two. I think one was that I've got one foot out the door, so I, maybe they thought I could say what I want. And the other was that they were really citing Prince Edward Island and UPEI as a successful case study. So this is a very, very interesting slide, and we'll make sure it's reproduced in a way that it gets around. But a young economist there took, for each of the 10 provinces plus the nation, the whole measure of research and development in higher education intensity from the period, this is the period from 1981 to 2007. And in 1981, well, we started with 82 on this chart, you'll see that and I might say UPEI, but in effect, Prince Edward Island was in fact at the lowest in the country and was well below the next province. And then you'll see we went along as we were happy to have done. And in 2002, you'll see the takeoff, and then a further takeoff through to 2007. And in fact, it's in that latter period when, in fact, national research funding had been tapering off in terms of even the resources available, certainly the resources available relative to the demand. And in fact, as of 2007, in this review, UPEI and Prince Edward Island, I think it's significant here that this is reported for Prince Edward Island through its provincial university, that has now moved from the lowest position in the country in 1981 to third overall in Canada. Nova Scotia, you can see there, in terms of its historic activity and the number of universities, is higher is the highest in the country. We didn't reproduce here, could have. It's Quebec that is second in terms of the HERD, the research and development and higher education intensity. But it's something that we can be proud of, and we can tie to other achievements that we've had in and for this province. This takes a look at where the funding comes from. This is an account of the funding that was provided for external research in the year 2009-10, the year in which we had 17 million in total activity through the University of Prince Edward Island. And you'll see that upwards of 3/4 of it came from the federal government, which is another way of reminding ourselves that it came through highly competitive processes against universities from coast to coast. And in the case of a significant amount of those funds came through the Atlantic Innovation Fund, another very, very highly competitive process that goes back to 2001, where UPEI has consistently punched above its weight class. That's what everybody else says. I don't know if there's a better metaphor or a better way of saying that, but that was one of the things that we heard said at this conference in Halifax on Monday. One of the pieces that doesn't appear in the 2009-10 year, because it was awarded in May of 2010, is UPEI's success in being awarded a Canada Excellence Research Chair. And I think most everybody here will know about that and have heard about it. But that was a highly competitive process, started out with 140 applicants from across Canada. narrowed down to 40 that were allowed to proceed or invited to proceed to the next stage. Another very highly competitive process leading to 19 $10 million chairs being awarded, those funds being available over a 7-year process. Those 19 chairs were awarded to 13 universities across Canada. I might say that there was no university in Montreal that received a Canada Excellence Research Chair. I would suppose collectively, and you look at the universities in Montreal, they might have 20 to 30 times the scale and capacity of the University of Prince Edward Island. There were no universities in Calgary that received those awards, none in Newfoundland or New Brunswick and so on, that UPEI, on the strength of our competitive work over the years, on the strength of our reputation and relevance and outreach in the world, put forward that Canada Excellence Research Chair proposal and secured it for this university and for this province is another way of appreciating why some people may have thought in some of the comments that were made earlier this week that there was some kind of passion or some edge to how we responded to the suggestion that we have our status as provincial university repealed. Seems to me when we've got a university that's performing at the rate that we are, with the success that we've had, and with the competitive excellence against international standards that we have, we should go very carefully in setting out to alter what has been a very successful arrangement for all of us and for everyone in Prince Edward Island. Thank you. I want to come through then to another reminder here, which is the role of published scholarships and ultimately the place of the book as it continues, as we go forward with our work and our scholarship. I mean, I think sometimes people have the feeling that everything's gone high-tech or everything is now moved on to some kind of virtual way of doing things. But in the period 2000 to 2010, there were 118 books published with UPEI faculty recorded as primary authors. And I might say, because it's really important, because I don't want to sound like I'm pushing the book over the technology, during that same period, our Robertson Library has really stepped forward in the world in its leadership in terms of building virtual communities to carry out research through our virtual, the VREs. I almost forget what that stands for, Mark. And then a broader work in the whole area of digital archiving that's really emerged from the innovation and the desire by the team in the Robertson Library, and then working together with others in the university and far beyond to respond to current needs and opportunities, and really to be offering a service here and broadly in the world that wouldn't otherwise be available. Here's a number that really, I have to say, came as a surprise to me when we dug down to look at the question of what's being achieved in the research enterprise in the university. 452 employees. They're not all full-time employees. It includes work for our undergraduate and graduate students, but a considerable number of people in supporting roles, in lead researcher roles, a total of the better part of 270 students supported, all through the funding that's being brought in for research. And then we took a look at what that generates directly, not any multipliers or anything, in terms of the income taxes and sales taxes that come to the province through those efforts, And I think it's really useful and interesting to know what the impact is and what the benefits are directly and immediately from the work that's being done here. And then you start thinking about what that translates to in the communities, in the schools, in the various ways that people show leadership and take part in things. And we start to begin to see the measure of what it means to be successful and competitive in the world of research to the extent that we are. This, I'll call it a helix. Someone will likely correct me and tell me that's not the right way to call it. But in any event, these overlapping constellations, which emerge from our strategic research planning exercise, show the various areas in which we have particular strengths and strengths that are overlapping and designed to be strategic and work together. And I think this is something more for you to take home and study, but I think it is interesting to know that we have that overlap of community and culture, environment, and health. The third panel in your brochure looks at community and the very many ways in which UPEI is a place for the community to come together, to take advantage of services and facilities, and a place to learn more, to achieve together. And I was surprised at this myself. We were asked by the Association of Atlantic Universities to dig down into what was called the social cultural activity of the university. And you'll see it on this, that third panel inside your brochure. But in the year 2009, it's estimated that there were 590,000 people who attended social cultural events at UPEI. So we're talking upwards of 4 times the population of the province. And then you start thinking about how that could possibly be. In the pools at the Carey complex, there were about 110,000 users last year. Other athletics facilities and events that are here because it's a platform for the shared success and the shared capability for the province. The science fair, the music festivals, the summer camps, the conferences, and the regular recitals and lectures, and on it goes, that comprise all of the activities where the community comes together and where UPEI reaches out to and forms partnerships with the community. When we came in here earlier this afternoon, folks were just closing up from a health fair that had been on here for the day, and where the students had an opportunity to learn about and interact with various NGO and community organizations to learn more about their health, but also to see about opportunities to get involved in volunteerism. This is then the final panel of the inside of your brochure, and it looks at, and it's very interesting and useful to look at this, to try and get an appreciation of, as we see that our enrollments have grown, that our research activity has grown, that the university's, I'll say, hustle has expanded as it has over the period from 1999 through to 2010. So we're looking at an 11-year period there. And it's really just a 10-year period. And our total activity in the 1999-2000 period was $56 million. And in 2009-10, it's $130 million. So it increased by about 135 to 130 some percent during that 10-year period. And it's also interesting in this breakdown to see how we've put that together. In 1999-2000, 72% of our revenue came from a combination of the provincial government operating grant and tuition and fees. And in 2009-10, 62% of the revenue came from that combination, with a corresponding increase during that period of a move from 4% to 13% for research, and the move from 24 to 25% in all other sources. I might say that all other sources includes donations from our generous supporters, and it also includes the ancillary activities and operations of the university. And then if you look, and there is a report on this, at the comparison of the extent to which ancillary activities make up the university's total activity across Canada, University of Prince Edward Island is about 4th or 5th nationally among the universities in that area. And this is interesting to see that during the period from 2000 to 2010, we had what you could call a 50% increase in employment in the university, and how that's all put together, and what it means then in terms of the overall impact and employment in the province, and what it means in terms of the productivity and the success and the opportunities for those individuals who make up the UPEI community, and who have made up the UPEI community, I might say, over decades and generations. Here we see a look at our contributions. If you track your eye on up to the figure at the top of the page, we're now in excess of $60 million that have been raised through donations to the university since 2001, or beginning in 2001. So in fact, that's a 9-year period. And then to see what the benefits have been, broadly speaking, from those donations, with donations to education and research programs, donations to student support, if we think back to that figure of the incoming students and the awards they're receiving, capital, and special programs that don't quite fall into other categories. But it's a remarkable thing, and for what it says about the way this university is supported by our community and by our donors, and what we're able to achieve with it. Frankly, I'd like for our endowed principal to be greater, but when you consider that this includes a period that includes the downturn of the fall of 2008, and we know what happened to the endowments of many universities in Canada and the U.S. and elsewhere as a result of the downturn of 2008, to see that our endowed principal has increased from under $6 million to upwards of $18 million in that 10-year period, I think is a credit to the people who've seen the value in this and who've made those contributions, and to understand that by making long-term sustainable contributions to an institution that's been around and has foundations going back 200 years and is going to be around into the future, and to be offering programs and delivering benefits and to be playing a leadership role as a platform for success for this province and community, it says a lot that people understand that, are voting with their dollars, and are making those long-term commitments, because that's why we call something endowed principle if it's been put there in perpetuity. And we appreciate it. And we're looking for more. And the end of the tax year is not that far off. So don't leave it till after Christmas. This is an interesting pie chart which looks at how we've carried out the infrastructure work that we have in the university in that period since 2002. Remarkably, we've had $113 million in enhancements and renewal and in new initiatives in what I'm calling here the core infrastructure, and I'll show you what I mean by calling it the core infrastructure when I show you the next slide. But what is really remarkable about this pie chart is to see that upwards of 40% of the resources that were required to make these infrastructure improvements and to look after our existing infrastructure and to expand our facilities and to look after and enhance our grounds, has up over 40% of that has come from UPEI, from donations to UPEI and from UPEI operations. 27% of it has come from the province, 25% from the federal, and then there's a category that comprises a number of agencies and firms that would be in the 7% for other. I called that the core infrastructure because that 113 doesn't include, for example, the Carey Complex, the Canada Games track facility, the Institute for Nutrasciences and Health, and the artificial turf field, which were done as community facilities with multiple sources of investment, where still, when you include those facilities into the total of what would then be 141 million during that time, still 35% of it comes from UPEI donations and operations. Province is responsible for 32% of it, the federal government for 27% and 6% from other. Perhaps the most significant thing I can tell you about that 141 million, or the 113 to bring it slightly closer to home, is that we're within a few million of having no unfunded debt in this university. And I might have to take a glass of water when I say that. I don't know how many university presidents in Canada could stand at a university update and say that they're closing in on having no unfunded debt. But it's a terrific thing for us and for this university and for our future to know that that's our fiscal situation. And I might add that between now and a date in early June of next year, there's a considerable amount of quite dedicated activity that will take place with a view to burning the mortgage. So we'll we'll let you know about that date and how we're getting along closing in on it, and we hope you'll let us know if you can help us out with it. That's the danger of saying here today that we're going to burn the mortgage, is people sort of get it in their mind that it's already done. So we're not lighting the matches yet, and we are closing in on it, and it is a terrific thing to be able to say that as a university community and as a provincial community, that we're that close to going forward without debt. The operating grant per student, this is an interesting one to track, and it gets at the whole question of the core support from the province, and it's been tremendous to see how that has grown. It has effectively doubled for main campus during the 10-year period that we're talking about, and overall the number will have more than doubled in terms of operating grants when you look at the university as a whole. And then when you look at, and I'm not putting this up here to complain, by the way, but I think it's interesting to see this, let me call it as a measure of productivity in terms of the return that this university gives for the support that we receive from the province. That in that period, now a 16-year period, and as many in the room will know, it included a sort of a rough patch in 1996 to 99 when governments across Canada were sort of stepping back from various sort of fiscal challenges. Then it started to take off again in the subsequent period, but our enrollment numbers took off during that same period, as you'll recall. So with the numerator being the total operating grant and the denominator being the number of students, it starts to become even more of a challenge, or I might say it becomes more of an achievement to do what we're doing with the resources that we have. It's interesting then to see the sort of change in the trend line in this most recent period. That reflects two things. One is that our student numbers did go up this year and have gone up over the last several years. And it also shows that what we've done is net out what we call the tuition replacement factor, in the sense that if you're getting money to replace tuition, it's sort of hard to say that you've got it toward, in some net sense, your operation. It's great that it is coming in to support our students and to help to reduce the cost of tuition for our students, but it also allows us then to see, and it's an impressive growth line. It's an impressive statement about the support that we do receive from the province and have received from the province over a period of time. And it's an impressive statement about what we're achieving with the resources that we do receive and appreciate. We go now to the overall view of what we've achieved in our infrastructure over this period. This is an aerial view of the campus in 2002, and I think we all kind of look to this image and try to start imagining, well, what's there now that wasn't there before, or what's there in 2002 that's not there today. I think you're probably down to the classroom center in that sense, but this is, I like playing back and forth with this one, to see the changes that have taken place on this campus in that period of time. Oh yes, the rink is there in 2002, and I wanted to draw your attention to your brochure, because there's a neat trick that we played there. I don't know if I'd call it a trick. It's the constructive use of technology. But if you open up the centerfold of your brochure, you'll even see that there's a building there that's not in this image, which is the new building for the School of Nursing and Family and Nutritional Sciences. So it's a reminder that, and which will be done by next fall's update. And it's a reminder that we continue to grow, that we continue to do well, that we continue to pay our bills, and a reminder that we're filling in this footprint, as I think we can all see when we look at that centerfold. We're really getting to the stage where the university is pretty much on this southerly part of our footprint, has pretty much filled in an optimal way, or I think it's another way of saying that our main work going forward will be to make sure we're making the best use of, and that we're doing a really good job of looking after and upgrading and renewing our existing infrastructure. Your eyes may go to the north part of the campus, where there's approximately 28 acres of usable space there. I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes part of the university's planning as we look on to the future. I'm happy to say that there appear to be a few parking spots left in that photo, but don't look too close. And then we come to the panel that's on the back of your beautiful brochure, and the phrase that's here, with all of the things that we can count, or the things that we can be recognized for, or the things that people will see and know about in the university. I think the greatest thing that we have achieved and continue to achieve is to raise expectations for our students, for our community, for our province, and for what people look to UPEI to achieve and contribute. And that to me is what we can consider to be the core function and the core mandate and the responsibility of a university in any community, and in particular of the University of Prince Edward Island in this community. And it's one thing to say that we should raise expectations or that we believe that we might be able to. It's another thing to stand here today and look back over approximately a decade and see the extent to which we've not only raised but met and exceeded expectations, that we've achieved what we have, that we know that this has been done through a tremendous amount of human effort and talent and focus and collaboration, through a lot of hard work, through people who care about and believe in and act to advance this university and this province, that it's been supported by donors, by the provincial government, by federal government, by anybody else we can get it from, to make this even a greater platform, a greater reputation, a greater deliverer of benefits in and for this province and for our students. And I come back to that as my final point, to think that we now have 4,600 students, that we have more than 20,000 people who've graduated from UPEI and our predecessor institutions, that people are coming here through lifelong learning, to graduate programs, to new and expanded programs across the board, to programs that have been here from the founding of the university and that continue to be the core of this place. It's a terrific thing for all of us, and I'm proud to say that we're all part of the success that we can see in this university update today. I thank you for being here. I invite you to join me in that sense of pride, and I invite you to stay with us for the part which will be to recognize the service of our long-serving employees. There will be awards for people who have been with us for 5, 10, through to 40 years, and special recognition of people who reach their 25-year milestone. For this university, some people might say it's a 42-year milestone to have been founded in 1969 as UPEI. It's really a milestone of 2 centuries of achievement, of success, of pride, and intention to keep doing well in the future. Thank you.
Friends, over the past couple of weeks, Wade McLaughlin did what the president of this institution should do. He stood tall to defend this institution, all its students, its faculty, its staff, its graduates, and the merit of the degrees that they hold. I was so proud of the effectiveness with which he put a stake in the ground and called spades spades in defense of this institution. That's called leadership. I don't propose to give a tribute to Wade McLaughlin's presidency at this time. Later will be time enough, and he's got much more work he has to do. But it is interesting that in this past week, where we have seen leadership, and in the same week when we have seen world-class ego, that we see the humility of this man. I am taken so much with the epitaph he's chosen for his graduating report card, raised expectations. Those words need to be contemplated and thought upon because, of course, in their simplicity and modesty, they speak deeply about the future opportunities for the university. The President used 3 words that I caught during his talk. He spoke of the reputation, the relevance, and the outreach of this institution. And I thought, yes, those 3 words say it all. Thank you very much, Mr. President.